book is actually the best ending that I've ever read of any book in my entire life. Like, this is one of those books where I don't want to do anything else but read it. It's about a man named Jack St. Bride, and he's just arrived in a town called Salem Falls, New Hampshire, and he was just released from 8 months of prison because at the school that he taught at before he was in prison, one of the students accused him of raping her. And you find out on like the first page that this isn't true. He was falsely accused. So for a while, it's like part of the book is like about his new life in Salem Falls, and it also follows the story of this woman named Addie who works at the diner, and they start a romance. But then he gets accused again of raping a teenage girl, and he didn't do it again for a second time. And the second half of the book kind of follows his court case, and I'm really interested in like law and trials, so I find that part. And there's just like some of those lines that you like see on like Law and Order, where it's like the judge will say something and the prosecutor will say something, and it's just like bam, 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 shots fired. So yeah, this is really good. I would recommend this to anyone.
I've heard so many good things about A.S. King as a young adult writer, but I've just never picked up one of her books. But I picked up this one because I thought this one had the most enticing premise. Gloria O'Brien's mom at some point committed suicide. So she's really worried about that genetic trait factor passing on to her, that she might become suicidal and commit suicide herself. But then through some sort of event, Gloria O'Brien is suddenly able to look at someone and see infinitely into their past and infinitely into their future.
Also, John Green says A.S. King is one of the best YA writers working today, so that has John Green's approval. Basically, it's kind of like a book about books, which it's really cozy to me. So I'm excited to read this, and it's like has a really nice font too. I have this thing where like
she does not pick out a book unless she thinks the font is good. Like, I've seen her turn down really good books because she's like, I couldn't sit here and just read through this font.
If it's like too big or if it's like too like abrasive, like I really hate like Arial font. Like it has to be a nice kind of like Times New Roman, Garamond variation, and it has to be like nice like 10 to 12 font, or else.
Yeah, also not single space. There has to be a little gap in between.
Yeah, I mean, like I read a single space book for Jodi, but it was a Jodi Picoult book. So.
Okay. I found out about this book through BookTube because everyone seems to be incredibly obsessed with it. They say it's like the next best fantasy series they've ever read, and I'm so excited to read this because I love fantasy. The premise of this book is that there is a girl, Celine, and her parents died when she was really young, but she was taken in by the king of assassins. She's trained to be the most notorious assassin the land has ever seen, but when she's 17, she's caught and sent to a death camp. However, luckily for her, about a year later, the king decides he needs an assassin, and instead of just hiring one, he's gonna make it into this fun game the royals can play. So each royal is allowed to choose one assassin to represent them in the games, and the king's son chooses Celine. So she's out of the death camp and she's into these games. I'm actually really surprised that this was written by Sarah J. Maas, because the other book I read by her, I was in 5th grade and it was 11 Birthdays, which was a really cute book, but definitely not like a fantasy, like epic adventure story.
It's a historical fiction book, which is shocking because I don't like historical fiction, thanks to certain books that I read that I will not name in middle school. What originally drew me to this book was the cover. It's just a very, very pretty cover. It's a nice window, it's a nice chandelier, but the story actually sounds kind of interesting. It's about this girl named Cora, and she lives in America in the late 1800s, and she's sort of a super wealthy, super well-to-do family, and her mom wants her to marry an nobleman though, so she sends her to England to find some duke to court. And although I assume that she already like has one in mind, I don't think she would just like send her daughter off into England and be like, you're free, find someone royal. Yeah, and it's basically, I think it's just gonna be about her making a place for herself in society and Again, really, really nice font on the inside. Really nice font.
The reason why I picked up this book is because I read History of Love last year in one of my English classes, and History of Love became one of my favorite books of all time. Nicole Krauss, she always writes books with an interesting premise, but the thing that's really beautiful is just her writing. But basically the premise of this one is that the stories all revolve around this one desk, because a lot of different people have owned this specific desk, like a famous author, a family in England, a woman who's just gotten divorced, and you kind of follow this desk as it pertains to their lives in all these different periods of time. So somehow all their lives intertwine even more than just the desk, but like the desk is the main thing that brings them together.
The next book I have is called Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. It's the first book in the All Souls trilogy. I am really only reading this for two reasons. One is that it's set in England. The second is that there's a romance with a vampire. Yes. It's an People magazine says it's an irresistible tale of wizardry, science, and forbidden love. Not really a big fan of wizardry, but I like science and I like forbidden love, so I'm excited for this. Also, it has a very nice glossy cover and a really nice font. So you can see I really prioritize my buying books.
I'm actually almost done with this book. It's a really quick read, and it's also really short. It's like just under 200 pages. This book is about a shepherd, and he has these dreams about him finding treasure, but then a king comes to him and says, listen, those dreams aren't just dreams, those are omens, and they are leading you towards your personal legend. And basically what your personal legend is your purpose in life, the one thing you're supposed to do before you die. So it's kind of about his story, like going and trying to achieve his personal legend. And then you watch him interact with other people who are also trying to achieve their own personal legends. It's written for adults, but it honestly reads like a children's book, and I like that. It's just very simple, easy. It's not incredibly lofty literature.
This is a book of essays and stories, and I really like essays and stories. So I'm excited for this. But it's the essays and stories of a girl who died 5 days after her Yale graduation. And I think it's just a compilation of essays that she wrote while she was at Yale, and I have a feeling it's going to be super amazing. It says that her unforgettable last essay for the Yale Daily News, The Opposite of Loneliness, went viral, receiving more than 1.4 million hits. So, yes, she was a very talented writer, obviously, and I am really excited for this.
I read the first two books in this series when I was in 8th grade. I really, really liked them. I kept on thinking, like, what happened to those characters? I wonder. I really love those books. Didn't try to pick it up. At the beginning of this school year, I finally bought this book. Still haven't read this book. I don't know. I've gotten 5 chapters in, and then I've stopped. And it's not even because I didn't like it. For whatever reason, I just stopped. So I really, really hope I'll start this book again. The premise of this series is that Nicholas Flamel and his wife aren't dead because he did find the secret to immortal life. So then in present day, they're living in San Francisco, and these twins work for them. These twins turn out to be the twins of prophecy, and everything ensues, like the battle between good and evil. It goes,
as always.
Yeah, it goes cross dimensions and everything.
I read the Vampire Academy series last year, and it's hands down one of my favorite series ever. I love Rose. I feel like I want to be Rose, except for when she's hooking up with Damon, because for some reason Damon's just one of those characters. Damon? Like, kind of gross.
Damon?
When I say Damon, I mean Dimitri. Wrong vampire love story. Oh god, that's so embarrassing. No, yeah, Dimitri just kind of creeps me out for some reason. Like,
Dimitri creeps me out too.
I feel like she's like
They describe him as this like really weird, like kind of silent, stoic Russian guy who's 7 years older than her and has really long, slick back hair. It's really creepy. I feel like that she could have gotten away with it had she not introduced Adrian.
That's so true. And that's a nice segue into why I'm really excited to read this book, because I love Adrian. And it's like one of those loves that like, it really blossomed, because at first I was like, Adrian, but then I was like, Adrian.
Also, I've already read the first 5 books in this series. The 6th one's coming out now. Sydney was also one of my favorite characters from Vampire Academy, but like if I thought I liked her in Vampire Academy, like, you love her in Bloodlines. She gets so freaking cool. It's so good. This is the only book in this haul I didn't buy for myself. This one was a Christmas present, and I don't know anything about it, but I actually don't want to know anything more about it because I actually enjoy going into books blind. I mean, the back says, meet the Cook family, and then it gives a little blurb that'll tell you like a little tidbit of what you might expect from this family. It's a New York Times bestseller, and I have looked it up on Goodreads just to see the reviews, and they are so high. So I'm excited for this one.
I started this book last night. I'm like 40 pages in. I don't love it yet, but I feel like it's gonna pick up. People say it's a lot like Gone Girl, and it is a lot like Gone Girl. It's kind of like a messed up lead female. She just divorced her husband. Basically, the plot is she rides the train every day from her house to work and back, and there's this one house that she always passes, and she sees this couple, and she like, in the least weird way possible, fantasizes about them. Then one day, something happens. To quote from the inside flap, every day is the same until today. So far, it's good. I like it, and I think I'm gonna like it more as I read on.
So I hope you enjoyed this book haul. We'll put links to our Goodreads and Instagram profile in the description. Bye!
Bye!